participants.
Great. So, I am really excited to have you here today. I want to thank you for taking the time to do this interview in has become a reoccurring series to help introduce the populace of Westmarch to its knights. Westmarch is huge, and I really want to try to help people connect with their knights because, we don't really see each other outside of two events a year. And I really want these newer players to learn about their knights. So, for those who don't know you, today I am talking to Dreadlord at Arms Squire Paragon Ser Attano Sagax.
I
So
think
again,
the squire and man at arms gets just folded into the sir.
that's it? Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah.
I I wasn't sure if the at arms was related to the squire though, because they were from different people. Squire, sure.
Yeah, the story is that I was an at arms for my teacher for Paragon Healer. But he wanted me to squire to a knight, so he basically passed up the buck to my current knight Sir Kalen.
Cool. And
So
Q
like
is
and
Q still
when he
not a knight?
transferred, what?
Is Q still not a knight?
No.
Wow. That
He did take a break for a while, but
sure. Well, I figured with all of his titles and experience. Okay, we're getting off topic. This is not about Q. Shout out to Q. If anyone doesn't know him, he's a great healer out of the Northern Lights.
then
But we're here to talk about Teratano Ajax. So, when did you start playing Amtgard? What brought you into the game?
well, it started in high school. I actually got lucky that our high school, since we were more of like a private school, we got a lot more freedom to uh host own events. And so for my school, out of like 1 week of the year, the teachers could choose to teach whatever they wanted. So like someone taught, like film theory behind, like popular culture for zombies. And one of my math teachers, her husband played Amtgard, and so she had him come in and teach us all Amtgard, and then we got to go out on the field with all the like loner weapons and things like that, and basically play these massive 40-player games of Amtgard on high school time. So obviously everyone loved those classes.
That sounds awesome, and I am really curious as to how to get a field trip signed off on, so I can have some. I can get a field trip approved for Amtgard. That would be wonderful. That's pretty cool. So, started playing after your math teacher's husband introduced you into the game. What brought you back?
Well, after that, I got interested, and I looked up the local parks, and I saw that there was at this time there was Arias Saltis and Martinez, and that was the closest one to me. And so
Rest in
I got my
peace.
rest in peace Arias Saltis. But I got my parents to drop me off. Um, and it was the people at the park that really got me into it. They were really encouraging. They said really nice things about like the starter garb that I cobbled together. They were, it was just really nice, and it was also just really fun. Like,
Oh,
every teenager loves the ability to, sprint full tilt down a field and then hit someone with a foam bat. Uh,
true.
and I know, and so mostly it was just like the park people that brought me back because I was having fun. They were really nice. My parents liked it because I was getting out and like basically doing pseudo sports.
Yeah.
And so, I basically got they were always like, okay, if you want to go this Sunday, we're happy to drive you. And then when I finally, got my own car and could drive
Yeah.
myself, I was like, I want to keep doing this because it's, it was
Yeah.
a way of having friends outside of my social circle at school. Because a lot of the social circles at school, like everyone grew up in the same area, so like we've all known each other for the past
Mm,
10 years, and so when you know each other, there's not really a lot of new faces, and you kind of already know who you like and don't like.
Mhm. No, I
So
mean,
like a lot of us had gone to the same elementary school, the same middle school, and now the
oh,
same high
cool.
school.
Yeah.
So a lot of us already knew each other, and so like I grew up knowing that like I didn't like a lot of these people in terms of like
Yeah.
I didn't like have the same interests, same personality, and so this was a
Mhm.
way to make friends outside of the predetermined social circle by school.
Yep.
And
Do
like,
you
it
remember
didn't.
Oh,
Hmm?
go ahead. I was gonna ask you, do you remember what your first garb was?
It was a healer's tabard where I got like felt, like ribbon, and like cotton, and I basically made like a felt tabard. Then I cut out, I think it was like the Neverwinter Nights shape from D&D. I put it on there, so it was like a red tabard with white trim all over it. It was a healer's tabard.
Wow, that's a huge project for someone who I mean, I
I
don't know what
was I
experience you
was
had in
very enthusiastic.
it's cool. So
Like
that
this
seems
was
like
like the second day too of Amtgard. Is that
Mhm.
during the like school teaching week? Is that I went back home. I was like, we're going to the craft store. I went to the craft store. I got all the stuff and I made it. And the next day I showed up with like the garb,
That's awesome.
and I was so proud of myself. And then I
So it's
wore it until it basically broke on the field. Because it turns out, felt's not the greatest material to make Amtgard garb out of, especially when
no,
you're
no,
running
it's
around.
not.
But while I had it, I was very proud of it.
I bet. So it sounds like healer was the first class you played. Was that also the first one you brought to level 6?
Yes. I actually, my old Amtgard name used to be Doc, because I used to just be like, I love healer. I've dedicated everything to healer. And then, it wasn't until I hit level 6 and I was like, okay, maybe I want to start trying to play other classes and, try other things, that I changed my name to what it is now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
Which
healer was the
speak
first one I got to level 6. It was also the first class I ever paragoned. And like,
Mhm.
basically, I didn't stop playing healer until I got paragon.
Mhm.
Like, I just
That's
didn't play any other class for almost like 2.5 years.
wow. I
I
mean,
was just
that's a
I
change,
was very dead set on it.
which I think is a great goal to have, and that's awesome. And actually, you started to bring it up there, so I'd love to learn a little bit about it. How did you choose your name? How did you get Atano Sagax?
Yeah, so like I said, my original Amper name was Doc, but that's a very generic name. And it's
What what do you
also
what do you mean dagger?
yeah, like it was very specific in a subset, and if I wanted to play something else, I was like, all right, I want something else. So I was like, all right, there's a million Amtgarders named after their favorite characters, and so I did basically a play on that. Is that I took the last name of a character from one of my all-time favorite games, Dishonored.
Mm,
And so, the character's first name, Corvo, is very generic, and it also, there's a lot of Corvuses and Corvaxes and Corvids in Amtgard.
mhm.
But I looked it up and I was like, there's no Atano. And I liked the last name and I liked how it sounded. And so I kept it. And then the last name came from another Amtgarder. I don't know if he plays anymore, but I was like, I have my first name. Like that a lot of Amtgarders have like the family names, so like Dark Jester, things like that. And so I was like, oh, maybe I want one of those. And so uh, he reached out and he said, what about Sajax? It's like, I believe it's like the words associated with like intelligence and like cleverness.
Hmm,
And so I was like, yeah, sounds good.
cool.
That's
Oh, sounds awesome. And people
yeah,
pick them for all dozens of countless reasons. But yeah, I think that's a really cool name. And wow, I haven't
yeah.
played
It's
Dishonored in
like it's
forever.
like a gift from a friend, especially when I don't get to see very much anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's I mean, I remember actually recently at Rakkus, I saw someone like one of their someone's knighting gifts kind of was the, "Hey, I'm taking your last name. Like I am gonna like we're part of this belted family, cool, and I'm gonna be like I'm taking your name now." And it was a really emotional scene for them, which was cool.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
they do that a lot, especially in Northern Lights. There's a lot of like families and like belted families that
mm,
take on the last name together. So
cool.
I haven't seen it as much in Westmarch, but like it's definitely
The thing.
a thing
I
that
mean,
happens across all kingdoms. It just the variance depends on which kingdom and where.
right. And I think he's brought it up already, but what your first major goal in Amtgard was that Paragon Healer or was there something before that?
Actually, I got drawn to the Path of the Serpent as soon as I read the Ding Dong Ding rulebook. Is because, well, one thing, I was in high school and I'm like, I like snakes.
Hmm.
That sounds cool. That sounds really neat. I can do that. And so I saw that and I kind of just like hyper focused on it. It also didn't help that like the Path of the Serpent is green, and green is one of my favorite colors.
I I mean, as someone who also started in high school, I remember reading that and I was like, please understand for anyone who's not listening, I am Atano's squire, and the irony of me going, man, art and crafts, that's dumb. I'm gonna go get a sword. That sounds sweet. And here
And
we
yet
are
somehow
over 10 years later.
and yet somehow you're my squire.
Yeah, well,
And
because
now
then I
now you
realized
message.
like there's more than it's not just art, like you can do a bunch of crafts, and I got more and more into the crafting side of things, and I'm also on that path now. And I
I
also
mean,
very quickly
I think it's
realized,
funny because I'm coming to you for stick jock
yeah,
help
that's fair.
while
But
trying to go through my battle master, and I'm like, all right, stick fighting, let's go.
I will say, yeah, that was also a very quick realization. Oh, there's no way I'm gonna get to, to the Sword Knight path. But there's a bunch of other paths that are out there for everyone. So
Yeah,
sounds
like
like
I have a lot of respect for the Sword Knight just because of the sheer tenacity you have to go
mhm,
through to basically travel to all these tournaments and just keep competing and
winning.
hoping that enough competition shows up that you can,
Absolutely.
push yourself to the next level.
So you started going for knighthood day one. What was kind of the point you got to where it was kind of going from, all right, we're we're going for this to like this is starting to become a reality. Like I'm getting close here.
Um, I don't think I actually went for like knighthood day one. I know I wanted to get like a master dragon or a master
Mm,
garber. It's like I knew I wanted that. Like knighthood wasn't. It's more like a cool, distant, like far off goal. I was more focused on, getting the dragons. I
mhm,
distinctly remember being very frustrated during my college years, because I was up in Northern Lights. I was entering all these Dragon Masters. I was winning them. I was getting best in show, and I was just like, and feeling like it was like I was like just kind of shouting into a void, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, what do I
oh, were
need to
they
improve? All that stuff. I just wanted to have my skill acknowledged, and so like for college me, that was dragons,
were
especially because I was
not to throw
competing
more
with like, you know, Amtgarders who've been there for 15 years. My knight, Sir Kalen, like she makes these beautiful like ostrich eggs, like sculptures, these beautiful like wire twist trees with crystals. She makes a lot of gorgeous work.
mhm,
And so, when
and you were
you're,
winning.
looking up to a knight like that, you want to be like, I want to show off what I can do, and I want to get acknowledgement.
Yeah. And you got that, I believe, when you got Master Dragon when you came back down from Northern Lights and were part of Westmarch again, right?
Yes, so I came back down from Northern Lights around, I believe, 2018, and
Okay.
then, you know, I was kind of not as active in Amtgard because I had to balance out, uh, real life concerns, trying to get on my feet.
Mhm.
And it really picked back up. like right before and during the pandemic because everyone was stuck inside. So there was a lot of
Mm,
time for me to focus on doing bigger projects, getting more visibility on the kind of skill that I had. But I will admit that knighthood took me completely by surprise
mm,
because I was not expecting it at all. I was just very happy that I'd gotten my Master Dragon. And I was like, all right, what do I want to, start working on next in terms of crafts now that I've taken Dragon to this path? I was a little bit like lost because it's like, you want to keep making new things, you want to keep showing them off. Because I really liked making new things. I made a lot of objects to donate to like battle games, to like, the kingdom level events and things like that. And just because I just really like the sheer fun of creating things. Like I don't think I actually have a knight's chain that I've made myself for myself.
really?
I've Yeah, I don't have one. All of my knight's chains are currently gifts from other people. Like every knight's chain I've made has gone to someone else. Just because I prefer, asking what they want, having a fun little challenge, and then giving to them and like just being happy that they like it.
Hmm,
So I don't have a knight's chain made by myself. It's all been given to other people. And
hmm,
so I got my Master Dragon in 2021. And I kind of was just like, okay, I'm a knight candidate now. I understand that, but I'm not really like the most visible of people. Like I really like crafting, I really like helping out, I like things that a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but I'm not exactly what you would call a public speaker. And so when I got approached and said, "Hey, you actually passed your vote," and I was like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?"
hmm.
Like I wasn't even aware I was up for a vote. So I was very, honored and accepted, but I was so surprised because I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that anyone was paying attention."
That's pretty
I'm
cool
just
though.
I'm just over here, like well at this point I was teaching like craft classes and I was, making like, donations for, artifacts and other, stuff that goes out, help the parks, prizes. But I didn't really think I was doing all that much, but it,
Apparently it
I
was.
think I'm just
And
biased.
and I think that you have a unique perspective because I think for a lot of people, they were maybe not aggressively doing it, but I think a lot of people were, "Hey, I want the knighthood," and they were, like, pushing for it in different ways, but not that
Yeah, I believe
you were
I
fortunate.
believe
You got a
yeah,
what?
I know my knight was pushing for it with the Westmarch circle.
Mm,
I did learn that. So like Sir Kaylin, Lady Bomb, she
mhm,
was, advocating for me with the Knight Circle, but I wasn't really I guess I wasn't really aware of that. I was
yeah,
only tangentially because she was like, "Yeah, no, you deserve knighthood." And I'm like, "Yeah, but let me do more for the community first. Like, don't worry about it. It's not really uh something that's gonna make or break Amtgard for me. Like, I'm
and
really enjoying where I am right now." But when it happened, and I listened to the reasons they gave, I was like, all right, you know, if I can
be
be,
clear for
more of a
anyone.
positive figure, a positive
Yeah,
impact,
that helps.
lend my voice, vote where I believe I think we can take the kingdom, then yeah, I will accept a belt.
Got it. And to be clear, Lady Mom is not Atano's actual mom,
Yes,
named for Sir Lady Caitlin.
yes. Sir Kaylin goes by the nickname Lady Mom, but she is not actually my mother.
Yeah. So I mean, you were very lucky, but it took you, I mean, relatively a short amount of time to get into. I mean, not in a couple years to get to the Master Dragon, and that's wonderful. So, and I think we've talked a little bit about it before, but maybe I can't remember if it was on the recorded or not, but what kind of are your goals from here?
Well, I'm working towards my battle knight,
Mhm,
because I do like the battle game aspect of Amtgard a lot. Um, Not so much like ditches and tournaments, but I like
mhm.
the strategy that comes with all the rule sets and the abilities, and so I'm trying to really show that I have an understanding of the field of classes and like working together with the team. So like that's my goal. You know, I'm also just kind of hindered a little bit by real life. It's like I want to teach more crafting classes, I want to make more crafts. Uh it's like I would like to hold leadership in Amtgard, probably regent, but
Mhm.
right now I'm more constrained by my own personal life, and I'm not going to take on a position that I can't dedicate my time to, because then it's just letting myself and everybody else down if I can't, be available for the times that I'm needed. So it's like I
Mhm.
would like, uh, I even most recently just got uh on the gatecraft team for Feast of Old Gods because I was like, I can help for that. I have
Yeah.
the time, I have the energy, I have the scheduling for it, and I can do that because I've done gate before. So I agreed to that because I'm like, I can do that. That's within my power. But like a lot of people are like, you should be regent, you should hold these positions. And I'm like, well, unless I can give it everything it deserves, I don't want to take it, because then I just do a subpar job and then
Yep.
everyone's miserable.
Absolutely fair. And you were talking a little bit about kind of how you like that aspect of the game. What would be a you can try to narrow down a particular highlight from one battle game?
Um, Recently when we were doing, I believe it was one of the capture the flag games at Wyvern Spur, I was basically paired up with another wizard as an anti paladin. And so I was playing the infernal archetype. So I did not have, a shield or
Mhm.
javelins, but I had fireball and I had flame blade. And so I paired up with the wizard, who gave me void touched, which gives
Nice.
me a lot of immunities on top of being an anti paladin. And but what he and I were doing was we would basically come up on targets from either side and basically ambush them. And so I actually did a similar tactic with Dagger last week when we were doing the count and hold game,
Mhm.
which is that Dagger and
Yeah.
I would like basically meet up, and then we would, look at each other, and then we would ambush one target from either side just on like a dime. I believe Dagger would yell, get him, but like it
Of
was it was
course.
we had this mutual understanding of this teamwork of, hey, we're way more effective
Mhm.
when you're dealing with, I believe he was playing a great cat.
Yeah, he was testing out one of the new monsters.
Yeah, when you have this like, dual sword wielding cat on one hand and this armored
Mhm.
an
Fireball.
armored and shielded wall on the other side running you down.
Mhm. Could
And
be
I also like,
brutal.
it wasn't even planned ahead of time. It was just a lot of like, strategy. We saw each other in the battlefield. We realized, hey, we looked at each other across the field and we looked towards, I believe it was Sebastian, and
Ah,
you nod your head. He's like, and there's this almost like silent communication of like, I know what you're thinking, you thinking what I'm thinking. Let's get them.
no, I that's a great feeling whenever you get that silent communication to take out Sebastian, who is a big threat on the battlefield, if you don't
Yeah.
know. Alright, and then outside of battle games, do you have just like an all-time, like, that was like a highlight for me, just one of my favorite memories?
Outside, I and at like events and things like that, I really like teaching my crafting classes. My favorite part is when people like go from, like you just see a couple of rings on the table and some pliers, and you're like, oh, this is actually looking like the butterfly we were planning to make. And like, you know, because also as a teacher, you feel limited. Like, I explained it well enough that they can do this? Like, am I making
As
sense?
mhm. And
Am I
as a
using am
teacher,
I using the right strategy to impart this knowledge? Because chainmail was I self-taught. I was the person who looked up all the tutorial videos. I still have some like little like scars on like my index fingers where like the pliers slipped and caught my hand when I was fumbling around with it. And
I
now I have
definitely
all
got
this
it.
knowledge, and I'm like, how do I explain this in a way? Because I didn't have someone teach it the way I was teaching other people. Because like all that stuff was just learned from both trial and error and from what I could dig up from like online archives.
And as an actual and as a not to say as a teacher,
As a
it definitely
qualified certified teacher.
it is definitely like a highlight, a win uh to get that and present in a way, and then suddenly like you see that kid get it, and you're like, okay, cool, they know what they're doing now. Feels good.
Yeah, no, that was definitely how I felt. Like both, even with like I taught at Northern Lights, I taught like a basic class where we all made a little a cute little bumblebee. And then
Hmm.
I taught in like an advanced class where we're making those gem captures.
Oh yeah,
So
those are fantastic.
I make these where you capture like a little crystal in like a set of four rings, and it basically makes this little. It's called like the pattern is called Her Majesty's quilt, and so
Mm,
it's a simple pattern on paper. It's hard because you have to be able to force the rings to fit, and it's very tight. So
hmm.
if you don't have the grip or like the good angle to do it, it's gonna be really hard.
Yeah,
And so
I mean,
like my class was like because like my class was with the other people who did the chainmail before, so like they knew how to hold pliers, how to open and close rings. It was basically just teaching them, my tips and tricks to get this pattern to fit together without, gouging your hand or, throwing your pliers across the room because the stainless steel ring is too tight and refuses to stay in place.
I have again, having done a couple of your classes, I've been there, and I agree, it's definitely challenging.
Yeah.
And I
It's
think
it's definitely something that it's like you have to want to pick up afterwards.
mhm,
Because it requires, like you tried the pliers, it wasn't as easy
mhm,
as like I made it look. Because like I had years of practice. Like I did,
and I
I
mastered it.
looked up all the hand positionings, things like that, to ease the strain on your hands. How to open them as efficiently as possible without damaging them. It's a lot of stuff goes into it that you just you can't necessarily impart in a 1 hour or 2 hour
No,
class.
I get it. So, I think one other I think one really critical thing, because I feel like there's been different definitions and explanations so far, but what does knighthood in Amtgard mean to you?
Then that's a like a difficult question
Mhm,
because if you ask 10 knights what knighthood means to them, you're gonna get 10 different answers. Because knighthood can be really variable at times. Like, especially since it's not always set on like the most rigid definitions. There's a vote. But I say knighthood is a mark of character to me. Is that you have this passion for something and you've done it for so long and you're really enthusiastic about sharing that passion, but you're also enthusiastic and like you're personable, you're willing to reach out, you're willing to pass it on to the next person. It's almost kind of like a Paragon hood, but for Amtgard as a whole. Because like a Paragon, you want to find someone to pass on, your knowledge of the class, your tips and tricks, and you really build a bond with this person. But look, I
Mhm.
see a knight as almost like a paragon for like a lot of the community. It's like, you want to be available, you want people to come up, be able to ask you questions, and you want to be able to answer them, and do your best. And sometimes, some people are better suited for than others. Like I am not a public speaker. I am I get a nervous wreck in front of
Mhm.
large groups of people. But it's like I'm really passionate. I'm willing to teach. I'm very excited about, ANS and Amtgard. And like sometimes that's all you need. And it's also just like
Yeah.
a mark of character of like, you know, you're being a decent person in the community, you're being, positive, helpful, all
Mhm.
these like generally good characteristics that you want to see in a healthy community.
That is, I think, yeah, those are all great things that we, I think, generally, hopefully, generally strive for. And obviously, yeah, I think that's a great way to visualize it as it not just a paragon for like a subsection or an aspect of Amtgard.
Yeah,
And
because Paragonhood isn't just skill with the class. Because it's like, are you
mhm,
willing to teach? Have you taught people? Have you spread the joy of this class to other people? You know,
mhm,
and so like you don't really understand that until you're like you approach someone else and you're like, hey, I saw you did healer. It's like, what do you think? Like, what are you building? I want to know what
yeah,
you're doing with it.
I
And so there's
remember
a
like
there's a
conversations.
communal aspect. Yeah, there's a communal aspect part of it, because like you can be the best, healer in the game, but if you're not willing to or not able to like share that with other people and like spread it out just beyond yourself, it's not really gonna be a paragon hood because you're kind of just a lone light in the dark here,
Mhm.
and you
A
just really want to
lone light
focus
in the
on
dark.
well because like you're bright but you're by yourself, and like I see paragon hood like knighthoods like you're bringing you're helping spread your light to like ignite other candles.
I think that's a really good way to phrase that. If you,
Yeah,
uh,
it's like one flashlight versus 100 candles.
mhm,
Like I
that's
think knighthood should be you shouldn't just be the flashlight. You shouldn't just be the like the soul light. We're stronger when there's more of us together. We're a better community. Amtgard isn't like a single player game.
God, Amtgard would not be too fun if it was. So that's really big, and you've had a lot of accomplishments over this time. What
I like to
is
think so
there?
anyway.
So for those people who are out there and maybe struggling with an aspect of knighthood, or maybe they're just they want to go for knighthood and they don't know where to start. Do you have advice for someone who's trying to get into climb those ladder awards?
Yeah, a lot of knighthood is going to like in part it's about visibility and like making sure that like people know you're enthusiastic about it. Like a lot of like I did win Dragon Masters, I did win Best in Shows, but a lot of the stuff is like, I loved giving uh donating like some of my custom chains as like prizes for events. I would be like, I'm teaching this class because I really love chainmail, or I really want to make sure that like every night new knight gets a knight's chain, so like I put myself on the list. Or like how Allura is like, I'll help make all these scrolls for people, and then a lot of people see that the scroll she made and they're like, wow, she's doing all this really nice work. She's really helping out because we haven't we don't have enough talented scroll people in the kingdom. And so a lot of that is just like visibility. So it's like you know I want to be a sword knight, maybe help, reave a tournament, arrange a tournament,
Mhm.
you know, see if you can travel to the tournaments that you can, or if you can't, try to host one. Like, crown is like, you want to be visible in your office. You want to be doing the most for your office. And you also just be like, hey, if anyone's curious about being prime minister, it's like, I would love to talk about it. If anyone, if you have people running for prime minister, you can reach out and be like, hey, thank you so much.
Mhm.
That kind of stuff. And like,
Yeah.
a lot of like, I would even say that Flame Knight is probably the easiest to be the most visible because uh the larger act of service, just by virtue of doing it, puts you in the spotlight whether you want to or not. Because everyone's like, wow, they, everything at this event went so well. The food was great. It was always on time. There wasn't, there was always seconds. But if because of the
Mhm.
fastest way to get attention to something is also to have a complaint. So it's like, hey, the food was late. It wasn't the best. Things like
Mhm.
that, and like they'll associate that
Your
with
event, which
you.
you don't
If
want.
you're like, hey, I teach in the kitchen. I'm doing my best. Sometimes we have unavoidable circumstances that we can't beyond our control.
Mhm.
So like, especially with like speaking of like the Feast of Old Gods, like the King City site being like, all right, guys, uh, no alcohol, you know,
Mhm.
uh, all this, all these last minute rule adjustments. It's like, you can't control that,
Nope.
but you can
Etiquette.
also control. Be like, hey, this happened. I'm really sorry. We're doing best. We're all human. You know, and then you just making visible efforts to change that perception. It's like, hey, this time, we're all set up to go. We have all these backups. You know,
Mhm.
I have all this. We have all these volunteers. We have people interested. We have different companies donating different meals. So it's not just me. And then you just slowly improve that. And if you do something really well too, like that's also its own uh like visibility. So everyone's like, wow, uh, Ser Attano ran a really good tournament or a really good quest. It was a lot of fun. There wasn't uh all the monsters were, balanced. No one felt like, they were being overpowered
Yeah.
by it. But it also didn't feel like we were rolling the entire field the whole time,
Mhm.
and there was shade and there was water, a fun
Absolutely.
storyline,
Variety
things like
of.
that. So it's like, but like if you have that passion and barring any extenuating circumstances, like it can be like a self-propagating
Mhm.
uh system. So like I did, like a lot of my friends got knighted, and so
Mhm.
I would give them, I would make these fun fancy chains as gifts, and then they would get noticed. People were like, wow, Atano does great chains, and they would reach out to me and be like, can you do a chain for Sir or Dame X and Y? And I said sure. And then
Mhm.
when I became a knight, I did a lot of knights chains for new
Okay.
Westmarch knights. They would reach out to
Mhm.
me unless the knights had a specific person they wanted. I was one of the people where you could just reach out and be like, hey, they don't have a specific person they want to make their knight's chain in their break glass. Like, are you willing to make them a chain? And I'd be like, yes.
Sure. Nice. And for, I guess, closing out, is there any other, like, not specifically like knighthood, but for healer, for chain making, for ANS, for just general Amtgardness? Is there any other bits of advice? Any other comments you would want to include?
Um, yes. So like for with ANS, it doesn't always have to be competitions that are the make and break. It's about being publicly passionate for your work, sharing it out there, bringing it where you can, and just, I guess it would just be sharing your enthusiasm in a way that
Yeah.
helps you demonstrate your skill.
And I know
So,
that's advice you've given me, and I believe on episode. Sir Halaver
Yes.
also said something very similar.
So like Halaver posts about his like forged knives and his other projects. Like I'll post, photos of my chainmail in progress or like completed things, or I'll volunteer and be like recently for the Feast of Old Gods, I was like, I can make, the VIP pendants. Like I have a cool idea and I think it would be really neat and I think people will really like them. And I also have these ideas for field prizes and things like that. And so you pitch it and a lot of people will just, go with it. And I know you're also doing like a tavern with your brewing, which I think is a fantastic idea because it fits the role play and it also gives you an opportunity to show off the bottle art that you've done and the brews you spent so much time, putting putting all this effort
Very
into.
I'm very
It's
excited,
like,
and also for anyone who is listening for some time between today and Saturday, they recently announced they're not gonna have an alcohol. There's no alcohol policy, so I will not be drinking my brews,
oh
which is
no.
saddening. So I'm gonna have to. I'll be making stuff that will be non-alcoholic and just as good.
Yeah, so
But
you'll make your mocktail brews.
I will be making mocktails, and that will have to do.
Yeah, so like you want to look for opportunities like that because you're like, oh, you want me to run a tavern? Taverns are known for drinks. Like
Hmm.
this is a perfect opportunity to show off. So even
Yeah.
if this one, unfortunately turned out to be no alcohol, but it's like,
Yep.
hey, that's
No, but
a
it's
hey, that's an opportunity to show off what I like and integrate it in like a very natural way.
yeah.
And so it's like
So
looking for opportunities like that, offering to teach if you want, like I said, even just being like, hey, I made these fun projects that I think would be neat prizes if we want to host like a quest day or something like that. Just out of the blue, it's like, hey, I made these amulets, I made these, bracelets, I made these belt favors. I think they're fun. I want, people to have them, and so maybe we can make it as part of, an ongoing event, an ongoing quest. And most people will respond very enthusiastically because
mhm.
like, a lot of people are not going to say no to, fun prizes they can win in a friendly competition. Part of the reason why
Absolutely.
like, everyone really loves the like, big event belt favors.
Oh yeah, I actually just got like a extra large one from Rakkus, and I was like, this thing is sweet. It's 2 times the size of anything else, and I'm emotionally crushed that it's not a bag. It's just a favor, so I can't put stuff inside of it.
Yeah, but like that kind of stuff, like even if it's just like I said, even if it's just a flag, not necessarily a favor, like people
Mhm.
love it.
Yeah,
They love having this stuff. Like people love to like do these things, participate in these things, and like earn prizes and like have like physical reminders.
absolutely.
So it's like, if you really like making swords, like making a sword is a prize
Mhm.
for, maybe not like a kingdom tournament, but like, there's fighting tournaments,
Yeah,
there's a quest. You could be like, hey, I can make the phase blade
or
that
with
we
that
give
point.
out at the start of rain, or I can make, the shield of faith or something like that. It's
Mhm.
like things like that. And then it's visible and then someone asks, hey, I really love that shield. Like who made that?
Right.
And so
That's really cool. Yeah.
it's just trying to put your work into places without being like overly pushy, of course, but
Hmm.
offering, because a lot of people will be like, if you're offering to make these cool things, like I'll take you up on it.
Hmm.
So it synergizes really well with a lot of the other like paths to knighthood. It's like, hey,
I
we want
love.
to host a fighting tournament and we want to have a lot of people appear because we really want a lot of skilled fighters. Hey, we have a really cool sword as like the top prize.
Hmm.
Everyone loves a really cool sword.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
think
hey,
that's.
we're hosting, I'm running an event and I want to run quests and be like, hey, some artisans have offered to make, belt favors or trinkets or things like that to go with the quest. It's like, hey, that works really well because then
Mhm.
people, you know, get a little prize. The artisans get their work shown, and like I get to have a little extra bonus on the quest. So, like a lot of the paths synergize really well if you're looking for it. So you just have to look for opportunities to like both show your passion and like your willingness to spread your passion to like the rest of the community.
Yeah, and I think that's a great place to I think for us to end on. So, I wanted to thank you so much for your time today, Tano. I hope that rest of your day goes well, and I hope to send this out to you soon. But at this point, I'm going to
All
stop
right,
the video or
all right.
recording.
Thank you so much.